Okay guys, now we have the cylinder head, so that part's done. We have the cylinder head here. We got to reinstall the valve. And remember, we only did the intake valve. We didn't do the exhaust. You get the idea. If you were to do the exhaust, it'd be the exact same job, same position. So remember, I marked my baggie. Okay, so I got my Ziploc bag. I marked it with the intake side so I don't have any confusion as to where things go. It's about being organized to be successful. So I take my valve. I take my, my valve seal, my valve keeper, and my valve spring. Okay, so we're going to install these 4 items here. Okay, so the valve I'm going to install from the bottom. Okay, from the combustion chamber. That's what this area is called, combustion chamber. I'm going to slide that on up. I'm going to hold it with my finger. I'm going to put my valve seal back on. Slide that all the way down to the bottom. Put my valve spring. Now see this valve spring here, guys, we can compress this by hand. If this was a car engine, there'd be no way to do this, no way. They usually take between 1 and 200 pounds of pressure to squeeze them, and my fingers cannot do that. Put that on there by hand. Remember, I'm holding the bottom of the valve, otherwise the valve wants to fall down. Gravity wants to take it down. Put my valve keeper there. Now, you see how it's got a little bit of elongated hole? So I'm going to push it down off to one side and then slide it back in the right spot. There we go. Okay, make sure it's seated. Show your teacher that it's seated. Okay, and you can see the intake one is different than the exhaust. The exhaust has a little recess there, and that's for the keeper, or the little spacer. And the spacer on this engine is on the exhaust side. Your engine might have a spacer on both sides. This engine only has it on the exhaust. Okay. So I'm going to take my little spacer. I'm not going to put it on yet. I'm going to put it on later, but that spacer, it goes and rests right on there. Okay. So I'm going to leave that off there, guys, because I don't want it to drop while I'm doing other work and lose that. The engine would have a hard time running, if running at all, once that, that gets lost. Okay, and it doesn't want to come off now. There you go. I'll put it back in my exhaust baggie for now. Okay guys, so now what we're going to do is we're going to put the cylinder head back on, and we're going to put the cylinder head gasket in the proper place, and we already put our valve in place, the piston's in, it's all lubricated, ready to rock and roll, it's nicely cleaned. Remember, I put my bolts in so I didn't lose them, and therefore I know exactly where they belong. And I put my gasket off to one side. Make sure your gasket is in the right spot. You have these dowels here. Okay guys, so don't forget these dowels need to be here, and what these dowels do is help everything stay in the right position. Okay, there has to be 2 dowels. So we're going to take my cylinder head, and again, you see the holes for the cylinder head are a little bit larger than the bolts, and they sit on those dowels. Okay, there it sits right there. I don't want to let go of the cylinder head. If I let it go, it has a potential to fall on the floor. So I'm going to hold it. I'm going to take my bolts. Remember, they have washers on them. Okay, don't forget those washers. I'm going to take those bolts and I'm going to thread them in my hand. I'm going to thread them in my hand quite a bit. Make sure there's lots of good thread in there. Okay, there's no question whether or not it's grabbing the threads properly inside the engine block. Now, once that's in there, I can let go. Okay, I can do that on all 4. Okay guys, now these 2 bottom bolts, they're a little bit harder to get to because they're recessed. So what I do is I put the bolt in my hand, I just throw it in the hole. I take my socket with a short extension, and now I can thread it in like that. That's still considered threading in by hand if you have just the socket or the extension in your hand. And I'm going to bring it all the way down. Okay? There we go. I'm going to make sure they're all slugged down by hand for now. Okay, so again, torque wrench, I set it to the suggested amount. In this case, it's a little bit more than the bottom amount. You're going to have to check your records for what that should be. I'm going to put that in there. And very important, I'm going to do it in a crisscross pattern, like we did tires earlier in the year. Okay? So, just some light pressure. It's not clicking yet, I'm just doing it in steps. So light pressure, all of them are lightly slugged down. Okay, here we go. There you go. You hear the click? Not loud, but it's there. And remember, you got to support the head of the ratchet. If I just pull on this, what happens is it pulls it on an angle, and it could damage the head of the bolt. Okay. There we go. That's it.